we needed something that was much more user-friendly, accessible, and understandable without me always having to be there. Otherwise, it wasn't going to be a scalable solution. If we didn't solve these issues, gReenvision would no longer exist. I'm Lauren Kuntz. I am the founder of gReenvision Energy. gReenvision Energy has the mission of helping to educate people about climate change and our energy transition. And the main product is a free online tool that anyone can go and play with that helps you design and think about what would a carbon-free energy system for the electric grid look like. Yeah, so when I was starting out, I decided to work with ORIL because I had a lot of the mathematical modeling tools that I needed to develop this software, but had no experience in UI development or web development. And ORIL really came up through some research and some searching as able to do and provide both the UI side and help create something that was easy to interact with, as well as the backend for it on the web side. And I needed help kind of translating that mathematical model I'd built into something that actually was a beautiful interface and could carry out the mission of helping educate the public. ORIL really stood out to me when thinking about different developers in the process, in the sense that they spent a lot of time understanding what it was I was trying to build, as well as had that full in-house ability to do everything that I needed of UI, web server, backend management, and finally just project management itself. That's one of the areas that ORIL really excels at, is they are incredibly good at giving you feedback of where does the product stand, what needs to be done, what outstanding questions are they, and exceptional when it comes to executing on a timeline on time. The biggest question marks I had in my mind before hiring ORIL were all around budgetary concerns of, is this going to run over budget? And if so, how are we going to deal with it? And that's really one of the things that impressed me most with ORIL, is throughout the process, we were really clear about how much remained, what had to be done, and where we stood. And we actually did finish on budget and on time, which in the software space, I feel like is unheard of. That almost never happens with a team. Before working with ORIL, all of the way that our users interacted with the model was through an Excel spreadsheet. And the biggest challenges we had were it was just a terrible UI, as well as not scalable. You really had to be emailing the spreadsheet, explaining how to use it verbally to somebody. It was clunky. There were ways to make mistakes with it. And we needed something that was much more user-friendly, accessible, and understandable without me always having to be there. Otherwise, it wasn't going to be a scalable solution. If we didn't solve these issues, gReenvision would no longer exist, because I personally lost the bandwidth to be able to constantly be the one doing seminars, teaching about the electric grid. And this has actually enabled the software to be out there and be utilized in schoolrooms across the world, actually. I just got an email the other day from a teacher in Australia who's using the platform, and that's something that never would have happened had we not worked together. So my background was a lot of time in academia. I think ORIL was my first step out of being a graduate student, out of being a teacher, purely in the classroom, and trying to start thinking about what does it mean to have a business and run a team and work with actual software developers. And ORIL really showed me and set the bar of what does an efficient software team look like? What do the different people on the team do in terms of UI, backend, in terms of product manager? And that's something that I've been able to use in other work that I've done down the line and other companies that I've started to just, I think, be a much better boss and leader because of the experience I was able to gain from working with ORIL. Of, you just had a great example of, this is the standard at which an excellent technical team should be functioning at. So the first step with ORIL was I had built a number of wireframes of kind of what did I envision the UI look like. And step one was working with their UI expert on their end to actually make that into a full comprehensive picture of what would the product look like. From there, it was then implementing that plan, and that involved a lot of back and forth of me helping translate all of the math that was happening behind the scenes into some code that they could use, while they were then working and creating what they needed on the back end to make that fully functional and fully live. Before working with ORIL, the only way that the gReenvision platform was in people's hands was if I physically went to teach about decarbonization to a group. And that could be a community group, that could be a business, that could be a classroom. So I physically had to go and I would teach for an hour and hope that they walked away understanding what was going on. After working with ORIL, because it is now this online platform accessible to anyone, I've been able to do things like partner with the nonprofit EcoRise and develop curriculum that any teacher around the world can go online, download, and use in their classroom at any point in time. So I've removed myself as the bottleneck for this information being out there and enabled it to really be in the hands of anybody that could possibly want it. The biggest objective of gReenvision is public education. So thinking about reach and people utilizing the tool was always the biggest objective. And before working with ORIL, again, it was really all about how many classrooms could I go personally talk to? How many businesses could I go personally talk to? And doing this along with my full-time job, which is not related to gReenvision Energy, it was very limited. If I was doing maybe 2-3 of these a year, talking to maybe 10, 20 people at a time. So order of magnitude, maybe 40 people a year are getting exposure to this platform and this tool. After ORIL, we've really unlocked that because anybody around the world can go online and use this technology and use this tool. It's also made it easier when I do in-person teaching to use the tool because I don't have to worry about every single person having downloaded an Excel spreadsheet. They just need to open up a web application. It's a lot more intuitive for people to use, so it's enabled me to go from doing seminars that are 10 or 20 people to hundreds of people in a seminar being able to go through this tool. Anybody considering using ORIL, I would say you are going to get incredible value out of the relationship. I think ORIL is deeply professional. They have a methodology that works very well in terms of interfacing with the client, translating client needs to their technical team, keeping their technical team on track, and then translating progress back to the client at the end of the day. So you will have a lot of clarity around where does the project stand, what needs to be done, and where are you going into the future together. I haven't personally worked with other companies or vendors that do the same thing ORIL does. What set them apart though when I was considering others were a lot of other places seem to be more one-off consultants where it's a team of 1 or 2, not a full team that's able to do many different services. So it was really unique that you could go to one place and really have all the different skill sets that you needed there, and the different team members could be pulled in at different times of the project as it was necessary. What surprised me, I think, was just the human relationships that I also built out of this. It was not a transactional experience in any way, shape, or form. Of between the weekly calls we had, I felt like I really got to know the people on the ORIL team and care very deeply about them as human beings. And I think likewise, they really started to care very deeply about gReenvision and what it was doing and where it was going. And it's been really a joy to, while the project has ended, still stay in touch with the ORIL team, see them keep going. I know a lot of them live in Ukraine, and when the crisis first started there, reaching out and hearing they were okay was just such a relief. It really was one of like, these people are not just someone behind a screen coding, it's like they're colleagues that you care really deeply about at the end of the day. I think after the project wrapped, I ended up sending a gift basket to the ORIL team. It's just kind of a thank you for everything they had done, because it meant so much to me to have taken something I dreamed about doing for years and finally have it done. I could not have done that without the ORIL team. And then later that year, they also sent me a gift basket of just goodies from Ukraine. And it just was the sweetest, most wonderful surprise ever. Like, it really made it feel a lot more like we were a team working together. This is a company that I am hiring to do a job. Anybody that just started working with ORIL, the best advice I would give is make sure everybody is as clear early on as possible of what is the end goal, what is the end deliverable. ORIL is incredibly good at executing and incredibly good at creating that vision and making it happen. And the biggest pitfalls you'll have with any company is if you have not set a clear scope of work up front, that's where all the headaches are going to come from. And ORIL will be great at helping ask questions to articulate that, but at the end of the day, it is on you to make sure you've really thought through what it is you want.